Hi, everybody. My name is Ellyse Amelia Trethric, and I'm the Director of Curation and Artist Relations here at Blackdove. I want to welcome you to the 5th episode of Curated by Blackdove, produced by the team over at Possessed Art. Possessed Art writes and releases high-quality artist insights on a weekly basis. Today, we're talking with the very well-known digital artist, Paper Buddha. Thank you so much for coming today and giving us a piece of your mind. I'm so excited to learn more about you. I've really known about you for quite some time from the numerous Twitter spaces that you've spoken in over the last 2 years that I've been a part of. I love the excitement and fun and just, different voice that you bring to Twitter spaces. And you seem like such a lighthearted but real person that brings up really interesting conversation. So if you are listening, please follow Paper Buddha on Twitter and make sure that you are on any Twitter spaces that he's a part of, because it's really incredible the conversations that you create and your support of other artists. How are you doing today, Paper Buddha?
I'm doing well. Thank you for the warm welcome and reception. Definitely needed. It's a cold day up here around the Great Lakes in the United States. Got a little bit of snow for Halloween.
Nice. We're getting cold here too. It's about to drop 20 degrees where I am in North Carolina. Excited to start that fire. I really appreciate you coming today, spending time with us, and allowing us to ask you some questions about your art, who you are as a person, how you create what you create, and some passion projects that you have. We'll start off with, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your art style?
Yeah, I am a Westerner born in the United States in the West Coast and grew up kind of in the counterculture and drug scene, very much involved in psychedelics. And found myself a career in business for the first couple of decades of my professional career. Was an executive and learned quite a bit of business stuff. And then later in life, really leaned into becoming an artist and wanted to combine my Buddhist practice with my love of American pulp magazines, pulp fiction, and through collage, kind of really start bringing these images to life and putting them out on the blockchain. I've been on the blockchain since early Bitcoin days and was waiting for the right moment to be able to make a career switch and become a digital nomad, and that was very possible with NFTs in early 2020. That's when I made the jump and started making it full time.
Do you remember what your first piece of art was, or did you always have kind of like a hobby of creating art, doing different styles or different things that you may have been passionate about, or did it kind of start, 5 or so years ago in those earlier Bitcoin NFT days? When did that start for you?
Great question. I early in life was a rave DJ in the early 1990s in the San Francisco Bay Area and a graffiti artist. So those were my artistic outlets early in life.
Nice.
And then, as I became an adult, I had to make this decision of getting into business and making some money or becoming an artist. At that time in the early 90s, that was very much a path of struggle. And so I made the decision to kind of shelf the art for a while, if you will. And then, just my love of music, my love of pop culture and everything, a few decades later, collage was definitely the right outlet for me. We live in a remix society. Everything is a remix of a remix of a remix. And that's what collage is all about, So I really wanted to uh, lean into this new digital form of collage where I can pick up an iPad and Photoshop and go crazy.
I love that, and I'm so happy that you're able to go back and pick up that passion that you had when you were younger. I feel like a lot of us that grew up in the 80s and 90s, it wasn't, especially with, digital art wasn't really a thing. And even before NFTs, when digital art was a thing, it was only really in a commercial sense. There wasn't much value. Nobody saw value in that. It was used for, by companies and agencies. We had our Behance and our portfolios, but what else was there for us? I think that it's amazing that so many people can now have such a new and successful and fulfilling life that they had dreamed of when they were younger, because a lot of us are pushed into medical and business and things that take from us a lot more than give. And what you do is really giving and fun, and especially not just the art but the conversations that you bring up in the community, I think are very important, and help a new artist come and see that there is kindness, there is fun, there is money to be made, with the right moves made. Do you remember that first NFT that you sold?
Oh yeah, definitely. I sold a few at first before I became Paper Buddha, and didn't really understand the market, didn't really understand NFTs, didn't
Hmm.
understand myself very well.
Yeah.
I had to take a step back and rebrand myself. Became Paper Buddha, and my Genesis drop on Tezos, I'll never forget, was 10 editions for one Tezos, which at the time was probably $5.
Hmm.
So 10 editions, $5 a piece. Took me 2 weeks to sell.
Wow. That is amazing. And now look where you are, and it's just a testament to say that at the beginning things might take a little bit of time, but stick with it, and you can become something great if you really believe in yourself, and keep with the thing. And that's amazing, and really important for artists all over the world to know. That's definitely a lot of being what an artist is. And I think that I tell me if I'm wrong, did your affinity with Buddhism aid you in that emotional balance to keep going forward? And what has Buddhism in general done for you in your life?
Yeah, good question. First of all, I think in Buddhism, we experience, usually we experience a gradual awakening. It's not a burning bush type of a thing, but something that happens
Yeah.
over a lifetime. And so I very much took that principle and applied it here that, I'm an artist for the rest of my life. And what I'm doing here is long term. And if that means that it takes 2 weeks to sell 10 editions at $5 a piece, that's fine. And then the next time we just maybe we raise it $1, and it's going to take us maybe 13 days instead of 14 days.
Hmm.
And so the land of incremental improvement is where I live. Whether you're a high
Yeah.
performing athlete, Formula One driver, same exact principle. Your lap is slightly better than your last lap.
Yeah.
And so with that, that was very much the I think methodology that I applied. And yeah, I'm a Western American Buddhist, and that's a very unique time and place. How fortunate for me
Hmm.
to live in a melting pot where Buddhism is first being introduced to a culture.
Yeah.
And it's for the first time in 2,500 years, a brand new culture is being exposed to the
Yeah.
teachings. And for me, what does it mean to be an American Buddhist? It means a little bit of all of these different uh, sects. I don't want to call them sects, but I grew up on the West Coast, and I grew up Zen Buddhist for 30 years, practicing Zen and all of the different forms of that style of Japanese Buddhism. But now we live in a world where I go to Kansas City and I go to the Buddhist temple there, and there's a mix of all the different forms of Buddhism, because we live in a globalized society where one of my favorite stories is a Tibetan master and a Zen master fly into Austin, Texas. Neither of them speak each other's language, but they sit there for an
Mm.
hour in complete understanding of each other while they wait for their translators to arrive.
Yeah.
And that's so powerful when you think about that and where we're at in Western Buddhism. And so there's not a lot of modern Buddhist artists, contemporary Buddhist artists. There's not very many of us. And I felt that it was very important to give that same exact service, that same exact spirit of transmission to the art and a 2,500-year heritage of Buddhist art. And to be that resource in my collectors' lives. I just got back from a weekend of touring a very well-known museum here in the United States and essentially being a tour guide for one of my collectors through the whole Asian art exhibit, and
Nice.
to really articulate all these things about Buddhist art and bring them into a way that makes sense for the modern Westerner. And so that's very much the spirit of what I'm trying to do with my art.
I think that that's really important, putting that that feeling and understanding, and I really think that it helps to open up people's minds to something different and want to find more about that religion in particular. I don't see as much as I'd like to see Asian art on the market. Maybe I'm just not looking, but that representative of something interesting and new that's really fun and not not scary and is inquisitive, I think is really like a lot of what your art is about. When I see it, I love seeing like the lights, going, or the ones that you had uploaded to Black Dove, third eye for the lights shining across, and just the movement makes it really interesting and brings it to life. And I'm sure that's what happens with a lot of people also. When did you become a Buddhist, and what kind of drew you to that? And now ends up you expanding that religion and just following and belief, I think, in general to other people. When did that begin?
I grew up very rough. I grew up in group homes, foster homes, incarcerated, and so a product of the system. When you're in jail, you're lifting weights, you're doing push-ups, you're reading spiritual books. This is the kind of the deal, right? So as a young man, I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. I read, some biographies on Martin Luther King Jr., on Gandhi, and I understood that these people liberated themselves through some understanding of a spiritual life. And I was exposed to Buddhism via, I had a really strange relationship with my family, with my mom. She was dating one of Alan Watts's children. And so I got exposed to Buddhism in my teenage years, kind of via Alan Watts and the hippie LSD movement. And, coming back to that early kind of drug career in my life being uh, very intertwined with psychedelics, that was my intro to Buddhism. And, so very, very slowly and gradually, I found myself practicing more and more. I would have never considered myself a Buddhist until my 40s, but
Hmm.
slowly I started this academic pursuit, this spiritual like meditation, trying to get better, right?
Yeah.
Mental wellness. More than anything was like in California, people are going to therapists and doing the shit and the yogas and the hot rock blocks and the meditations. And I'm like, yeah, all right, I'm going to get down with the meditation. That makes sense to me. And, I kind of started finding my way to Ram Dass, finding my way to, Ram Dass is interesting as a trip. That'll lead you down to that Hindu path. But with Alan Watts led me to Suzuki Roshi and a lot like Dogen and quite a few heavy Japanese scholars in Zen, and that became my tradition. And very, very gradually. And today, like I said, and that was the early 90s, where we weren't so connected like we are now. And today, being a Buddhist in America means a little bit of all of these different schools.
Yeah.
And, so quite different than when I was first exposed to it. But now, later in life, I take the practice a lot more seriously than I did earlier in life. Just because time is finite, the transient nature of things as we get older. I think these things become more interesting to us, these big, big questions.
Yeah, I mean, personally, meditation has helped me a lot as I've grown in my life and helped center who I am in my art and understanding, like allowing myself to understand more of who I am. And I love that you're bringing that to other people and how you talk about it and how open you are in Twitter space conversations about what you've been through and who you are. Like no shame, and I think that is really what people are looking for in the community. I know that that's what I was looking for. I think in like the 10 years before that, everybody like would be shameful to put that they went through this or that, and like everybody was so non-transparent because they felt like nobody would appreciate or approve, or they wouldn't get this job if they shared this. And now it's our trials and tribulations are our strength in this community, in the Web3 community. That transparency has been a really big revamp in who we are as a society, especially in art, and given us a new way to really connect with one another. And I think it's a beautiful thing, a resurgence of this world journey that we're all on and feel more accepted than ever, and that there's communities out there that we can really find and appreciate and be a part of and create family that a lot of us have never had, and it was very hard to do that before, and it's been really amazing to see where that's all come, and I appreciate you sharing that with me. That's very special. How do you bring your pieces to life? Like, what do you use? Do you use After Effects or Photoshop, or combination of both, or Premiere or something like that?
Yeah, I do Photoshop primarily, but there's definitely some After Effects in there. So the
Mhm.
longer stuff, the file size gets a little bit too long, too big for
Yeah,
Photoshop alone.
yeah.
But keeping it all in Photoshop allows me to uh, really unify the visual effect that I'm
Mhm.
after, the marionette puppet feeling.
Yeah. How long does a piece take you usually?
Ooh, these days it's taking longer and longer. I'm thinking about this tweet a friend of mine made not long ago, a zoot. I don't know what we call them now, but that year one he had a huge release schedule and he made all this work. And year two it got smaller, and year three it got smaller. And I'm thinking back, and like this year I've had maybe 12 drops all year long. I've
Mhm.
done two big super rare pieces all year. I've got one that I'm just about done with, and I've been working on it for about 2 months.
Wow.
So yeah, I've got a couple of one-on-ones sitting around because it just you want to wait for the right time
Yeah.
for my stuff. I also kind of want to wait for if there's a way to line it up with some kind of a commentary on what's happening in pop culture.
Mhm.
I've got a couple of pieces that cycles repeat, so I'm just kind of waiting for stuff to happen, and I'm like, oh, that's culturally relevant. We'll go ahead and send that
Yeah.
one.
Totally. I think that, as get older and your artwork gets more wanted and seen, you feel maybe more, you want to do more intricate pieces and really spend a lot more time and make it meaningful for those collectors. Not that the first weren't, but really just putting more and more into it. And I think that that's really cool and fun. I love knowing, I like owning pieces that are like, wow, it took 2 or 3 months to make. That's very, very special. And knowing that, the time and sweat and passion and thoughts that you go through sitting and doing this piece of art, and you really have that part of a person with you in that ownership and part of different communities. Speaking of, what you do, you provide any utility for your works, or do you have a Discord? Do you create community in certain ways? If so, how?
Yeah, it's a big part of what I do. So, I firmly believe that the relationship between an artist and a collector
Mm-hmm.
is really about experience, right? That we're after buying experiences these days. So I
Mm-hmm.
really want to offer an experience to the people that choose to support me economically and collect my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, we do have a public Discord, which is rather quiet these days. We have our Telegram chat, and both of those links are like in my bio on Twitter. Um, I'm sure we can have them in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
But those are very active. So fun fact, love video games, and being a gamer, I've got a PC that I play games on,
Nice.
and consoles too. So don't judge me. But I've got three monitors. I've got the main monitor is for my video game. Second monitor is for a movie or a live stream like Twitch, and the other monitor is for Discord. And so when I became an artist, I just switched that up. I made my main thing, my main monitor is my art canvas.
Mm-hmm.
Off to my left is my Telegram chat, which all day long I have open and I'm hanging out with the homies. And if I'm not in my art studio, then it's on my phone. And so that is definitely like the best way to get a hold of me, to hang out with our community. But it is very curated. I kick people out, I ban people that are not the
Yeah.
vibe, because I want to protect our community. And then I do a lot of real world events and real world activations.
Great.
We do a thing called Blunts and Brunch, which we do at
Hmm.
least once a year. And it's a great thing. We usually do it at an NFT event like ETH
No.
Denver, NFT NYC, Art Basel.
Yeah.
And we all get together as a community, all the collectors, all the people. I've got about 3,000, 3,500 collectors. Out of those, we get about 100, 200 people showing up in very casual, like kind of in and out way over the course of a couple hours. And we're eating great, healthy food. We're drinking juice. We're drinking water. We're kind of getting a recharge in the middle of these wild events, right?
Yeah.
Smoking some weed, and then we're back off. And so, very much, it's become a ritual. We do a yearly camp out in Nashville as well, kind of a psychedelic slash creative retreat.
Awesome.
That's on a big 140 acres. And then I'm doing a bunch of activations. Kansas City is really low key loves Buddhism. Like they've got this huge exhibit that's been at the Nelson Atkins Museum since 1930 in
Wow.
Kansas City. There's two big temples there. And one of the people that's helping manage, getting involved in managing my career, she lives out there. So I've been doing a lot of activations. We're doing one at the planetarium. We did a huge activation at the drive-in movie theater. So we had a bunch of like interactive art all over the place and
Yeah.
stuff up on the 100-foot screen. And then I'm also getting very involved in more traditional high-end gallery shows. I've got my own solo exhibit coming up here soon, and I will be making an announcement about that partner soon. But really exciting stuff on that end as well. So I'm very active in the real world, more so than I am in crypto art.
I think that that is amazing, and thank you for sharing that. I had no idea that you were doing so many things like that. I love that, the the blunts and brunch and blunts. I think that that's super fun. I love the larger acceptance of cannabinoids. I think that's very important and really amazing for you to be expanding people and having fun. And that's, I want to come. That sounds really fun. My kind of people, and really important to the value of your art also for collectors and people that are passionate about your art to have those experiences with you. Now, I know you're not showing your face here. Do you show your face there? Do you wear a mask? Do you have a PFP over your face? What is the sitch?
Yeah, I don't mind the occasional photo of myself because I'm usually
Yeah.
wearing a hat and glasses, and I'm definitely, people see my face, no problem. I'm very close to people. I just don't dox uh, my government name, right? And I think a
Yeah.
lot of that is there's a couple of reasons. I think part of it is the performance art and the transient nature of all things. Does it matter what my name is? My wife doesn't use it. She just calls me hey. My kid doesn't use it.
Ah.
He just calls me dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So nobody really uses it anyway. So really, how important is that?
Yeah.
So that's a thing that I wanted to bring up, but it also allows me to just be me at the grocery store.
Hmm.
I don't have to be Paper Buddha at Costco. I can show up in my khakis and my Tommy Bahama shirt and like
Yeah.
just be a fucking nerd, and, and that's okay. So for me, it was kind of a double thing. Not only the performance part of it, but also it's very good for my personal ego to keep those things very separate.
That's good. Being able to turn on when you need to and turn off when you need to and can also, I think, is important. It's hard to be a single person and be all of these things. So I think that that's really fun and cool, and appreciate you sharing that, because I know people have said that they've seen you at events and then you want to make sure that you're kind of hidden in other ways. And I think that that's fun and important to also have as a piece of utility for your art, is getting to be around the real you and getting to have those experiences to know that it doesn't happen that often. And yeah, I think that that's a great explanation. I've always wondered, and I think that that's a really great explanation for, and thank you so much for sharing. Can you tell me a bit about your pieces? Let me know if I'm sounding this incorrectly. Tirana.
Yeah, no,
Okay, cool. Tirana and Atmosphere.
yeah. So atmosphere. So kind of coming back to these real world activations, I'm a firm believer in continuing to display and exhibit the artwork, right? I want to continue to add value to the art itself and continue to transmit the art after it's been collected. So the first piece there, atmosphere, like the first one I'll talk about, atmosphere, was my super rare genesis. It took me over 500 days to get on super rare. So for those of you listening in the
Wow.
future, super rare was that time kind of the premier place to get your art listed in crypto artland, and it took a really long time for most people to get on there, very invite kind of closed ivory gate type of thing. So it took me over 500 days to get on there. I had to run an entire meme campaign where I was basically using humor to call out super rare, like, hey, this is pretty ridiculous. I'm a well-known artist. It shouldn't be this difficult for me to get on your platform. Anyways, so this piece, atmosphere, was my very first mint on that site. So we call that a genesis. And a big collector from the Middle East actually collected it, and uh, for me,
Yeah.
it actually became a signature piece of just that struggle, that journey to get on the platform, the victory of minting it and having a good financial performance with it, and to know that it sits on display in Abu Dhabi while I'm able to continue to take it on tour here in the United States. And
Wonderful.
um, yeah, so that one's really special to me. I like to bring that one out whenever I have the chance to have a large display.
Yeah.
That's usually one of my go-to pieces because it's very intricate. Most of my work is designed to be on at least a 72-inch TV or bigger. So it's all
Yeah.
large format. And unfortunately, we live in a world where people are scrolling through on their phones
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
likely missed quite a bit of the detail of the shadow work and the intricate cuts. And then the other piece that you're talking, Tirana, is my most recent piece on Super Rare, and it's actually a commentary on kind of this feeling pre-bull market, right? If you look at it, there is an empty wheel of life, an empty samsara sitting there. That's the Buddhist imagery that you see, and you see a woman trapped in a bubble, and then you see kind of the cybernetic robots riding the bulls off to the side. And what that represents is very much like how it feels to be in this echo chamber of crypto art, waiting for the next bull run and feeling that kind of the pressure of the cycle of waiting and it feeling empty while we're waiting for the cycle to continue, the wheel, as we
Yeah.
wait for the wheel to turn to the next bull cycle. And so that was very much a visual representation of kind of that realization, that awakening of, hey, I'm in a bubble and I got to go do stuff in the real world.
Yeah. Thank you for those, sharing that. I'm gonna have them share, if that's okay with you, when we make some posts, just calling out those pieces that we're talking about in the podcast. Is that okay?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
perfect. The more eyes, the better. The more value I feel like art gets. So I think that that's really interesting. It's, like I always use the Mona Lisa as an example. One person that owns it and is able to use the rights for marketing and things like that, or whatever rights they have, but so many people can go and view it and be able to appreciate it via different viewing abilities, which I think is wonderful. People want to appreciate the art and see the value in it and possibly become a new collector. So I thank you. I really appreciate you allowing us to share that as one of
Yeah,
my. Oh, go, please go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's very important that and more artists do this, that you continue to show your piece after it's been purchased. How
Yes.
else does a piece of art become iconic? It becomes iconic because it's shown everywhere I go, because everybody that walks into that building in the Middle East sees it,
Yeah.
because it's going to be available in print, because it'll be on my coffee table book, because it's a flagship
Mhm.
piece in my collection. It's the very first thing you see when you come to my website.
Yeah.
So, the more people that see it, the more value gets added to the piece of work over time. And I think that's lost on a lot of crypto artists.
I do too. I think that it is, harder to understand how to show that piece more and create more value and have more people buy, let's say, the mug or the poster version or the t-shirt version of that piece of art, and reach out to collectors and say, hey, is this okay? I'm going to be doing this, because a lot of people are just wallets, a wallet address. You don't know who that person might be unless they share it on social media, which there are people that do and there are people that don't. And there are some ways to message people here and there, but then, there's more security issues there. And that's why, and I don't know if you know this, I don't think it came up in the conversation when we were talking, that what we're going to be doing at Black Dove is going to be starting a revenue share for licensed pieces. So the owner of an NFT, when you put it on the blockchain, you as an artist can say, I want the owner of this NFT to receive, and this will be part of like just automatic utility that they would be able to receive 10, 20, 30% of any licensed pieces that are sold. So people can still buy that artwork. They can still show that artwork, but it's just for, a year license. It can't be transferred. It can't be sold. It can only be viewed on the Black Dove platform. But it's more like that poster version that's a less amount of money than that NFT, but that owner still can incur, revenue, increments of revenue, as an option if the artist wanted to add that on there, which I think is really going to be interesting. Try to give a bit of a revival for owning NFTs. It's not a promise of a monetary value or your NFT is going to be worth more than this. Like, not saying that at all, but it's the opportunity to share that revenue with who's owning it and aid in people reaching out for more commission pieces to get a revenue share, and they turn into like a new marketer for you, which I think is interesting. So just like, having that piece of art that is in another part of the world, other people can view that in a different way, just like, a printed book, like what you were saying, on a coffee table and things like that. So that's going to be exciting. And, speaking of where that's going, you know what do you think of the digital art market now, and where do you think it's going? I know it's nothing compared to what it was, a year and a half ago, but where do you see it going personally?
Great question. I think, to riff a little bit on what you're talking about with Black Dove, I think that's way important. I think that complements exactly what I was saying about having more exposure to the art, adding value over time. I
Yeah.
can see people licensing my work and having it in hospitals and hotels and
Mm-hmm.
restaurants all over the world because they have Black Dove screens, right? And like that makes total sense. And that you're sitting there, maybe you're eating or whatever, and you look over and you see a paper Buddha, and you're like, "What's that?" And you scan the QR code, and you're like, "Fuck yeah, I want to buy an original."
Yeah.
So I think that is a much needed service in the space. I think it's huge, a huge market. So that's a big deal, like full stop.
Nice.
And then, where do I see the market going? So it seems quiet now. It is quiet now. My conviction on the technology has never wavered. What we're doing here with NFTs is really
Hmm.
important. In the future, we're not going to call it NFTs though. The same way we don't talk about, my Pop3 account or my IMAP account. Like that's just my fucking email. I don't talk about the protocol. And so everyone's going to have digital art ownership in the future.
Yeah.
Uh, I was at the planetarium over the weekend, and my friend runs the planetarium, and we were hanging out. We were talking about lasers and stuff, and like you do. And
Yeah, I was just about to say, of course.
and so he's got the laser Stranger Things show going on, and he's got a sold out crowd. 200 people paid $20 a piece to come in and watch a 45-minute Stranger Things kind of laser show to
Yeah.
music, like music from the Stranger Things series. And I just kind of stopped dead in my tracks and went, all of these people just paid $20 each for a 45-minute digital art experience. And then they're going to go home. And none of them have ever heard of an NFT. They've never heard of the blockchain. They
Yeah.
just straight up consumed digital art like they have in a planetarium since the 70s.
Yeah.
And I was like, I kind of blew my own mind. And I was like, all right, so that's what mass adoption looks like. Mass adoption looks like me talking to the guy that owns the planetarium to sell him the fucking laser setup so that he can entertain the rest of the people.
Yeah.
And once I had that realization, I think that really changed the way I'm looking at the future of this thing, right? My release schedule is getting more and more tight. It's going to get more and more difficult to own my artwork on primary. And that's the nature of time. It's because it's taking me a lot longer to make these
Mm-hmm.
pieces because I'm putting way much more thought into
Yeah.
them. As I have a deeper understanding of Buddhist iconography, then there's different things that I'm doing in my art that take so much more time,
Yeah.
and so as a result, the release schedule gets fickle. The release schedule gets fickle, number go up. Like that's kind of how it works,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Nothing I can really do about that. So the future of art, the future of crypto art is more and more people piling into this thing, learning about crypto art because it has been getting better every single month. It's been getting better, the technology, the UI, the onboarding experience, the security, all of these things are slowly, incrementally, in the land of incremental improvements, we are getting better. It's getting easier to use the blockchain to the point where more and more people are just going to
Mm-hmm.
jump in. Oh, what's that? I want to sign up for that thing. Oh, I need to set up a wallet. Yeah, I can do that. The same way it's like setting up your grocery card membership reward card. Where you're just that's kind of the deal. Like you need my email to get a discount. There you go, buddy. So I think it's going to be even easier to onboard people into this thing over the next couple of years. I think we've got another 4 or 5 years max of people really understanding that this is an NFT and like what the protocol is before it just becomes part of everyday stuff. We don't say the word anymore. It's just art. It's not even maybe digital art. I was at an art show a couple weekends ago and I was looking at digital art from 2013. And it was like somebody made a looped video. They put a USB stick in the back of a TV and put a frame on it and sold it to somebody for thousands of dollars. And I'm like, yo,
Yeah.
this is way, way early. So I think that that's
Yeah.
on the other side. That's where we're going to be. It's just a piece of art that's digital, and it sat next to a canvas, which sat next to a statue. It wasn't weird. It was just a different medium.
Yeah. Do you feel that the word NFT detracts from people's passion about the whole of digital art where, like, they're like, "Ah, no, I just don't want to own an NFT. I don't care how beautiful it is, kind of thing." Do you feel like that has grown to be a stopper with all these just, that's just how life is. Crappy things happen. There's going to be crappy people that do crappy things. I mean, I still get, after buying a house, I get every month, scams in the email, and scams in the regular mail. It's just nonstop, but it's more uh, visible because it's something that's new, and there's always a security risk with some things. And you just have to be educated and take that time. But do you think that the word NFT itself has hampered the ongoing upward journey of what digital art is? And what we're also trying to do is detach, obviously keep it attached to NFTs, but also detach it and show you can license a piece of art. It doesn't need to be, its value doesn't need to be determined by the blockchain, in that way of having to call something an NFT.
Yeah, I do think that there's negative connotation with the word, and I think that that's the nature of words. Words get reclaimed, words get reused. They
Yep.
change meaning over time. It may be in favor 1 minute and then it's not in the next. And I think that's natural. We want to meet people where they are. Again, thinking about Buddhism and Westerners in general, a lot of code switching has to happen in order to transmit those things to a Western
Mm-hmm.
audience.
Yeah.
Certain shit is not realistic. An American is not going to go meditate 4 times a day for 2 hours at each time. A nice little just a nice little 2 hour meditation when you wake up before the sun comes up, and then another 2 hour one before noon, and then another 2 hour one in the evening. Like that shit doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's not going to work for our audience. So we got to change it up. We got to change up the messaging. And I think we're at that inflection point with digital art where, yeah, dude, I'm out here doing art shows. I'm not out here doing digital art shows. So let me make that clear. I'm not usually at an NFT event. I'm usually at an art event.
Mm-hmm.
And at an art event, you won't catch me dead calling myself an NFT artist. I will
Yeah.
call myself a crypto artist once in a while. Most of the time, If I'm going to identify as that, it would be a digital artist. But honestly, I'm a collage artist. And people go, "Oh, collage art, that's super cool, man. How come it's all on the screen?" I'm like, "Well, new tools. I'm a digital. I don't have to cut anything up because I don't want to cut up any of that Dharma art or any of those old cult magazines that are 100 years old. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
cut those up. I want to take digital scans and cut them."
Well, what do you feel like your messaging? What do you feel like the messaging should be to make it feel like more acceptable? It's just digital art. It's just art. That's really where we want to get. Like what you said, we
Yeah.
really want to get to it just being like, this is art. And I think the beautiful thing of being a digital artist is, your television or a digital canvas, like one canvas, endless art, and no longer we have to have this piece of art here for 15 to 20 years, to be able to prove its value in some way, which I am originally a traditional artist and I still am. I do mostly drawings and paintings and I still see that value, but just the ability to really take a single space and turn it to a never ending experience of whatever you want, like a visual Spotify playlist, I think is really the brilliance of what digital art does, and the ability to view it in ways that have just never been appreciated or understood before, I think is amazing.
Yeah, I was at a 21C, which is a chain of hotels that's really
Yeah.
artsy. They've got some like art gallery shit in the bottom of all these things. And I think really what the sweet spot over the next decade is going to be a mixture of both. The logistics of deploying an entire new art show, very difficult, very expensive. You got to move statues, you got to bring in new lighting, you got to,
Yeah.
adjust everything just so. However, if you weave in digital displays, it doesn't feel weird, it looks very
Hmm.
natural, and those things don't have to be taken down. They can be easily rotated. And
Yeah.
so now a gallerist is saving 50% of those logistic fees. Maybe they're not ready to make that full jump, but having part of their gallery able to be so easily rotated for the next thematic event or whatever, I think
Yeah.
that's huge, right? And 21C is already on it. They had a bunch of digital art on display that wasn't on the blockchain. And then I did catch a couple of things that were on the blockchain, and that's what it said. It didn't say this is an NFT. It said this art was minted on the blockchain. Oh, okay. I see you guys. I like your messaging.
Yeah. I like that. And I love the conversation that we've had. One of the best conversations with artists that I've had in a long time, and in my previous position in Web3, where I was with a company that built NFT marketplaces, I interviewed hundreds of artists over like a year, and this has been a really amazing pleasure to speak with you. And I think not just because you practice Buddhism and you're appreciating the journey that's going along with it, and taking that time to do your art, but I've always wanted to have a conversation with you at length, like this, after listening to you so many times in other Twitter spaces, and I almost can't remember any other artist but you and who you were, just because of how damn raw you were, and real, and that really sticks with people. So I want to say, just keep being you, because it makes people remember you and appreciate you. It makes people want to be more like you and share who they really are. And it's a breath of fresh air, to hear the things that you've said and have this conversation and where art's going to go and your personal thoughts. And I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you for all those kind words. It's an honor. I love the fact that I have a platform to speak about these things. So I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Of course. Is there anything new in the pipelines for you before we, end this convo, that you want to share, or anything else that you want to share with listeners out there?
I have a collection dropping on Bitcoin, an ordinals collection that will be dropping November 7th. It's an important collection to me because of the decentralized nature of Bitcoin. I'd be happy to answer anyone's questions about that in my DM or in any of my community chats.
Nice.
And then, I think the other thing is just go out there and practice some compassion. I think a lot of us are in rough places. The bear
Yeah.
market beat a lot of people up. So go act with kindness and, yeah, say something nice to somebody, make their day.
I think that that's really important to say, not only the market of where it is, but how everything's been and almost unattainable, unaffordable in a world right now where food has gotten to 3 times where it was like a year and a half ago. Interest rates for houses are 8% right now. I think it just like went over that. And a lot of people want to live out their passion and live out who they want to be on the inside in a physical world. And that's what we're here at Black Dove really passionate about, is bringing digital art into a physical world. And all we want to do is create new monetization avenues for artists. And that's what, as the kind of, main artist on the team, that's what I want to see for everybody else around me. And what we all deserve is to do the things that we love and to be appreciated. And I'm just like you said, it's going to be about 5 years, I feel, for it to really be a staple in life and understood in that way, where spas and all furniture stores, tattoo shops, like everybody is gonna have some kind of digital art playing, and who's going to have the best, or who's going to have the coolest, or who's going to have the best color match to the thematics of the room, kind of thing. And more of like a show off experience, which is already done with art, but in a really interesting way that is ever changing and exciting. And I look forward to the future of what you're creating, what we're creating, and just working, more with you over time. And it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for Possess for producing this show, editing it, and getting it out there to the masses. And we'll be doing a written piece on you for our email lists, and we'll be sharing it on social media as well. So subscribe at blackdove.com. We'll be just follow our Twitter, Black Dove Art, and also on Instagram too. You'll see the story with Paper Buddha, be able to listen to this and see more written content and pieces of art in a physical world for you. And I appreciate all of your time today. Thank you so much, Paper Buddha.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Have a great day, wonderful weekend, and stay warm out there. Winter is coming.